Hey, welcome back to LR Options. If you're new, please consider subscribing. The news for 4/16/2020 goes as follows. Before we even get into that, I just want to tell you that I'm going to do a review on the news, just some of the basic things that are going on, and how they relate to. We're going to be going over how they relate to what's going on in the markets. Okay. So, the governor reported today that 2,000 new people have walked into hospitals with the virus. So, in other words, 2,000 new people that are infected or tested positive. People want to know, when will this finally be over? And the answer is when there is finally a vaccine, and that may take 1 year to 18 months. Or maybe there may be treatments to be used along the way until there is finally a vaccine that's developed for everyone to use, and everyone can then, breathe, a little bit better. There'll be less anxiety, less frustration, and then businesses will be opened in phases. So they still have to figure which businesses are going to be opening first, and then so on, and which will follow, I guess, in priority. So we're going to be going over Lyft. So we're going to be doing beginner stock analysis of the stock symbols Lyft, MO, and the SPY. So Lyft, LYFT, we're going to be looking at a chart pattern. And the chart pattern that we're going to be looking at is for 4/14 to 4/17. And this is now in April. And we have what is called a wedge pattern. So it's wider in one side, and it becomes narrower on the other side. So the chart opened at, let's see, it ended at, on the 13th, 32.12, and then it opened at 31.51, and that's when the wedge started to form. And at the end of the week, well, actually, no, on Thursday, the 16th, it ended at 27.07, and it formed a wedge shape. Okay, so it's almost like a triangle, but it's not close at one end. It's not pointed all the way at one end. Again, it ranged within, also in a wedge, the stock will range within certain levels. And for instance, it went from 31.65 and it averaged to 27.12. Well, it ended on 27.12, so it just continued on a downward wedge. Okay, so the wedges can be straightforward, they can be horizontal, they can be facing up to the right, towards the right, or they can, in this scenario, it's a wedge facing down. So so it went in a range, and then on Friday, finally, it broke out of range, and it opened on Friday on 29.77, and it closed on 28.58. So the thing about a wedge pattern is it forms a range, it'll trade in a range, whichever direction that is, which is up, down, or straight ahead, and in a horizontal range. And finally, at the end of that range, the more narrow range, or part of the wedge, it will break out. So in this instance, it broke out from Thursday, 27.29, and it broke up to 29.77. And that's one of the characteristics of a wedge, that at the end of the wedge it'll break up or break down. Well, break up out of the wedge or break down out of the wedge. Okay, so now let's go to another stock, and we're going to go to MO stock symbol. That's Altria Group and Incorporated. And again, we have a wedge, and it's more like a triangle because it's pointed on one side. And again, it's wider on one side. So let me show you. It's wide over here on this side. Okay. And it opened up at 42.31. And it gapped down to 41.18. It went down further to 40.35, and it ranged within that triangle shape. Let me see if I can show you that with a brush symbol. Okay, it just ranged, you see, like that, up and down, until it finally, on the 17th, it broke out of the triangle. And let me show you this way. Use the arrow. Okay, and it broke out of the triangle, went up, and it, let me see, it broke up to 41.90, went up to 41.90. Okay, so that's a triangle shape, and it's very similar to the wedge shape, only the wedge shape is usually open on the second side, a little bit more open, but they're very, very similar, and the breakouts are the same. They either break up or they break down, and this triangle shape actually is horizontal, so it's not really facing down, it's not really facing up, it's not trending up, trending down, it's just ranging in a horizontal fashion. Okay, then we're gonna go look at the spine. So let's go a little bit further. Here we go. And here in the spine we found two triangle shapes. These are all, you can also call these pennants because they look like pennant flags. You know, it's flat on one side, and then it's one of the legs of it's going further up. It's more open. So it's more like a pennant flag. You know, if you see how it looks like a flag, you add the stick, and it looks like a flag. Okay. And again, this pennant flag, the first one was formed on April 9th by the spine gapping up to 280.63. And then what it did was it ranged within this pennant flag, and let me use the brush. Okay, let me show you how it arranged. Okay, like this, and it stayed right there. Okay, and then what you're looking for is for it to typically break out either to the bottom or to the top, and this one broke up to the top. So the next day, what it did, well, the very same day, it started moving up, and then the next day, it gapped up in the opening, and it gapped up to 286. No, actually, no. It gapped up to 282.80. And again, there was another pennant formed. So usually, I notice a pattern that once you have one pennant or one triangle, one wedge, you'll start to get several in the same stock symbol for a certain amount of time. Some stocks form some patterns and others form other patterns. But again, pennant shape, and this the second pennant gapped up to, let's see, 2383, and well, it ended in 2383 the first day. Then the second day it gapped down to 277.99, and again it just ranged within that pennant flag. And in order to form the pennant flag, you're going to take the highest point where the pennant flag starts to form. You bring it down to the lowest where it's going to close as a triangle or a wedge at one corner where two corners meet, and then it forms a pennant. And on the 16th it closed at 278.69, and then as you can see on the 17th it gapped up. Okay, it broke up, and it broke, in other words, it broke up out of the pennant flag, you see, and it went up. So usually that's a signal when you have a pennant forming, a wedge or a triangle shape forming, and it's getting more and more and more narrow. You see over here. Let me show you the other one. And over here. And it's getting more and more narrow. That's a signal that this pennant, triangle, or wedge is going to be breaking out at some point. Okay, and it's always smart to try to put, if it hasn't broken out at the end of the day that it's getting very, very narrow, that trading day, it's good to put a put in a trade for a call or a put where you feel or where it looks like the trade is going. So if for instance, you can get a hint from the simple moving averages, and all the simple moving averages are heading up. If you can see this, they're all going that way. So that's a good symbol. That's a good signal, I'm sorry, that the stock is going to break out that way. If the simple moving averages were the other way reversed, and you had the 200 simple moving average on top, then you had the 50, the 9, and the 20, then that means that it's a good possibility that the pennant is going to be breaking, going towards the bottom, going downwards, bearish, and then that would be a good time for a put trade. Okay, so we're going to close here. Thank you for visiting. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and please share, like, comment if you can. If you have any questions, please comment and let everyone know what we're doing here at LR Options. Thank you.